Joining us right now, Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. And Judge, what a stunning development, this ongoing saga. What did you think of the president's decision to fire Jim Comey? And then do we need a special prosecutor on the Russia probe?
Well, all great questions, and yes, it is a stunning development. We start with a couple of basics. The FBI director, though he has a 10-year term, serves at the pleasure of the president, literally at the pleasure of the president. The president can fire the FBI director for any reason or for no reason. Second, the president is absolutely right when he said that Jim Comey lost the ability to lead. And when did that happen? It happened almost at a singular moment, 11 o'clock in the morning, July 5, 2016, when he took to the podium and announced what he didn't have the authority to announce, that Hillary Clinton would not be prosecuted for espionage, the failure to safeguard state secrets entrusted to her for safekeeping. But by the way, here's all the damning evidence we have against her. That was one of the more spectacular and outrageous statements that an FBI director could make, manifesting, I think, very poor judgment. And then efforts to re-explain that, efforts to undo it, the comments about and public revelation of what he thought turned out not to be true, the contents of Anthony Weiner's laptop. Every time he tried to explain it, it got worse. What was the effect of all this? It disaffected the FBI director, who at one point had a pristine reputation in law enforcement, from the rank and file. And when you can't lead the rank and file, it's not a vote. The FBI agents don't get to vote who their boss is, but they have to have a certain rapport and a certain respect for him, and he lost that from so many of them.
He was in a really hard spot because his boss was Loretta Lynch, and she had the meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac 2 days before Hillary Clinton was going to be interviewed by the FBI. But even before that, Dagan, don't you think there was this massive pressure on Jim Comey not to prosecute Hillary Clinton because he knew where his boss stood on it? I mean, this...
Absolutely, and I defended him for that appearance in July because of what Loretta Lynch did meeting with President Clinton. But the critical why now in this firing does go back to Rod Rosenstein.
Yes.
And
that's
finally
the brand new deputy director.
Finally, he was confirmed just a month ago, and he's considered to be a straight shooter, completely nonpartisan, worked under Bush and Obama as a prosecutor. And Judge, he essentially wrote in this briefing on Jim Comey, which I think the Trump administration was probably waiting for to use as the reason behind the firing. He wrote essentially exactly what you said about the July 5th Comey.
Now, the July 5th thing, there are 3 other people north of the FBI director in the Justice Department, one of whom was Sally Yates. So if Loretta Lynch, whose behavior in this case was deplorable, and there should be some legal response to it.
Well, they all politicized the agency.
Correct. But her deputy director was the person to whom the FBI director, the deputy attorney general, Sally Yates, the number 2 person directly under Loretta Lynch, same Sally Yates that testified the other day. She is the person to whom Director Comey should have quietly, below the radar screen, said, here's the evidence. You decide what to do. Right. In our judgment, we don't think we can prove the case, but you decide what to do.
Yeah.
When he said we don't think we can prove the case, this is what caused a lot of our ears to go up, and this is a little bit in the weeds. He used the wrong legal standard. He said we don't think we can prove intent. Well, espionage, again, the failure to safeguard state secrets, is that rare federal crime for which the government doesn't have to prove intent.
Well, how is there not intent? This is the person who used to be the first lady of the country. She was Secretary of State, and she was the senator from New York. She doesn't understand safekeeping national secrets?
She would have had a very hard time explaining to a jury how she could not keep secret things like satellite photos and transcripts of foreign agents talking to each other.
Well, and the other thing is this morning the Democrats are out in force, basically saying the president is having an abuse of power. So the president already is targeting Democrats and their reaction to the Comey firing. This immediately reminded me of what Hillary Clinton said just a week ago about losing the 2016 race. Here's what she said about Jim Comey just a week ago.
I take absolute personal responsibility. I am very aware of, the challenges, the problems, the, shortfalls that we had. I was on the way to winning until the combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th and Russian WikiLeaks raised doubts in the minds of people who were inclined to vote for me but got scared off.
Well, look, the WikiLeaks, or however WikiLeaks got what they got, revealed the truth, which was the shenanigans going on behind the scenes to undermine Bernie Sanders in the early part of her campaign.
But my point is, you can't have it both ways. Last week you hated Jim Comey, you thought he was ineffective. This week you're saying it's an abuse of power.
I think it was an abuse of power for him to announce the reopening of the investigation. Jim Comey's abuse of power. And I think that even though it benefited Donald Trump politically, and may very well, if she's right, may very well have tipped the scales in Donald Trump's favor, I think he realized that Jim Comey had become so politicized and disaffected from agents in the field that it was time for him to go.
Judge, does this politicize the agency even more now that he's let him go, and now you've got this fight setting up on Capitol Hill over who is going to replace him? I mean, he just played right into the hands of Democrats who are trying to accuse him of, President Trump of everything.
The push for the special prosecutor, in my view, will go nowhere unless and until Republicans join that bandwagon. And
some of them
you're right, Kristen, a very, very significant Republican did last night. That's Senator Richard Burr, who's chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, who gets to go in these secret rooms with Jim Comey, with the head of the CIA, with the head of the NSA, and look at the nation's most delicate, highly protected secrets. He walked out of that room saying, this is one of the finest people I've ever dealt with. There's more here than meets the eye. If more Republicans start saying that, you'll see more of a push. Who decides if there's a special prosecutor? Not Attorney General Sessions, because he's recused himself from this, but this new, largely unknown, but well-respected in the legal community, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. What does a special prosecutor get? His own FBI agents, an unlimited budget, and the ability to indict anybody. And the ability to indict anybody.
Do you think they're going to go down that route, or do you think President Trump and leadership in the Senate will try and divert it onto McCain's suggestion, where they just create a Senate committee dedicated, bipartisan committee dedicated to this investigation, which has the advantage of Republican majority and, as you noted, a special prosecutor. Once you launch that missile, it can't be brought back.
If the FBI is investigating the Russians' attempts to affect the election, if the FBI is investigating an alleged connection between Donald Trump's campaign and Russian intelligence, neither of those investigations would be disrupted in any way by the removal of the FBI director.
Several people have already said, including Jim Clapper, there's no evidence of any collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians.
He said that under oath the other day.
How come Jim Comey hasn't said it?
In this respect, Jim Comey did the right thing by not speaking about an investigation still ongoing. If he had done the same thing with respect to Hillary Clinton, if he had just silently passed the evidence on to Loretta Lynch, he'd still be the FBI director today. There are profound rules of the DOJ and the FBI. You do not give snapshot views to the public of a criminal investigation.
Unless you're talking about someone that you want to be president.
But it was full of...
or not to be president.
Right. So his testimony last week, Comey's testimony was full of innuendo about that Russia investigation. He was like, it was very coy. Yes. And now he's out of a job.
And then there's Sally Yates. Well, I know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you. Right. I can't. Judge, thank you.
You're welcome.